Hey everyone, hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about 10 weird historical fiction novels that you recommended to me. Yeah, I'm so excited to get into this list, and actually I read one of them, so huzzah for that. Let's think. If you are new here, then hi, welcome. My name is Shelly and I love books and reading, and in that reading space, historical fiction that is a little bit off the beaten path is one of the genres that I gravitate towards. So if you're new here and you like the vibes and you want to subscribe, I would encourage you to do so. Also like the video, that always helps. And without any further rambling on, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. So about a month ago, I made a video about weird historical fiction books that I like. I think in that video, I was both trying to articulate to myself what is weird historical fiction and why I like it so much. I used examples like Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall and M. Son of the Century by Antonio Scarlatti, which is an Italian novel. I think what I meant, is sort of to recap that video, I think what I meant by weird historical fiction was a historical fiction novel that takes a more literary bent, that it has something about it in terms of craft or character development that goes deeper than the maybe mainstream historical fiction work, and that maybe it's doing something else in terms of language, craft, or structure that makes it stand apart. It is something that stands apart ever so slightly from what we would consider, as readers of the genre would consider, a mainstream historical fiction novel. There's nothing wrong with mainstream historical fiction novels. I just tend to really like historical fiction works, as I've discovered, that are just a little odd. It's doing something a little different. Okay, so in that video, I asked for recommendations, and in this video, I'm going to ask for more recommendations. So if you can come up with some weird historical fiction recommendations for me, I want to hear about them. I chose 10 from the comments of that video. There were more. I just chose the 10 that I thought I would like to read the most, and here is what has come up. The first one is Captain Corelli's Mandolin by Louis D. Let's see, how do you actually say it? Sometimes my handwriting is not the most, it looks pretty, but it's not always the most readable. Oh, it's because there's some accents over things. Louis D. This was recommended by my friend Jack at Spread Bookjoy, and it was actually seconded by Chynakat. Chynakat. I will leave as many people who have channels linked down below. So I have multiple resources to help me figure out, because I don't really know what. I made the list, I've thought about these books, I've considered even buying these books, but I haven't really dug into or integrated the summaries into my heart, into myself. So this is set in 1941. It was originally published, I think, in 1994. So, set in 1941, it's about a young Italian officer, Captain Corelli, and he's posted on a Greek island as a part of occupying forces. At first, he is ostracized by the locals, but as a conscientious but far from fanatical officer whose main aim is not to have a peaceful war, he proves in time to be civilized, humorous, and a musician. Of course, as the war gets more intense, his character and motive are put into sharp focus. So is he an invader or is he a defender? So I read, sometimes I'll kind of look at the Goodreads comments, and so this one, or even top Amazon the commenter, reviewers comment, just to get an idea of what someone felt. And someone says, they quote the book and they say, Love itself is what is left over when being in love has burned away. That is a cool quote. And also, the reviewer said, why, oh why, did I wait 20 years to read this enchanting novel? And then goes on to talk about the novel, but man, what a good little review. I've seen this book at the thrift store in the past. Like, this title has been in my mind before. I just have never taken the leap to acquire it, and of course I haven't picked it up, but now I kind of want to. The next book is kind of infamous in my heart. Like, I carry around this title and I wanted to read it. I just haven't bought it. And yeah, we'll talk about why. So the title is The Wolf and the Watchman. And then there's a colon and it says 1793. This is by Nicholas Nachagdag, who is, I think, he's a nobleman. It was originally published, I think, or translated into English from the Swedish in 2019. And the funny thing is, so this is recommended to me by Bing Lamb, the commenter Bing Lamb, and he got the recommendation from Mark at Book Time with Elvis. Follow me on this. I had Mark at the channel Book Time with Elvis on my channel like a year ago, and he talked about this extremely disturbing book. And guess what he talked about? The Wolf and the Watchman. And at the time, I was like, I'm not gonna read that. So let's we'll have our discussion. We'll go offline, like online. We'll have our discussion, and then we're gonna go offline, and we're just gonna chat. And I want to know the spoilers for this book. And he indeed told me the spoilers of the book. And I was like, I'm never going to read that. But then over the years, because I know about this title, I have heard from people that I really respect that it doesn't really matter, the spoilers. Like, you kind of, and it's actually disturbing, but it's one of those disturbing books that you both want to look at and look away. And I know someone who is actually quite a sensitive reader, and she was like, no, I actually totally recommend that book. It's so good. It's so like, ugh, but it's also like really, really good. You probably are like, Shelly, what is this book about? Let me tell you, it is set in 1793, and it's about a body that's found in the city swamp by the watchman. And the watchman and the investigator try to figure out what happened with this body. Like, they're discovering the murder of this body. And apparently it's very brutal. And again, I know the twist or like the ending, but I was like, do I want to read it for the journey? And I do. And actually at used bookstores, I straight up look for this title, but it's never at used bookstores. And so I'm like, do I buy it on my Kindle? Like, I just always have this like back and forth relationship with this particular book. And so I thought it was almost hilarious that when I was asking for weird historical fiction, of course I would be recommended this like dark, disturbing, yet very well written book by a Swedish nobleman. Next up, a recommendation by Carla Brown, and it is The Seed Keeper by Diane Wilson. This is what the book is about. So it is a haunting novel spanning several generations. The Seed Keeper follows a Dakota family's struggle to preserve their way of life and their sacrifices to protect what matters most. Rosalie Ironwing has grown up in the woods with her father Ray, a former science teacher, who tells her stories of plants, of the stars, and the origins of the Dakota people. Oh, huh. That sounds kind of up my alley. When I made this list, I wasn't sure. And again, I didn't exactly know what it was about. But that actually, if it's going to be a blend of nature writing and historical fiction writing, that seems actually quite up my alley, because I really love a strong naturalist, nature-esque setting where there is a celebration and a meditation on the land. So, So this was, I think, published back in 2001, and it doesn't actually say when this is set, but it's probably set over a large period of time since it says it's spanning generations. Y'all get it. This next book has come up in my life before. I believe this is my auntie's favorite book series of all time, and someone else that I know in my real life. And so this author has kind of haunted me. No, this author has like followed me around slightly in my reading life, though I've never read anything by him. And so also the person who recommended this book to me, outside of my lovely aunt and this person that I know in my real life, is this person, the commenter from my lens. My goodness, Shelley, stop stumbling over your words. The book is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This is, I know it's about a cathedral. So a 12th, not 20th, 12th century monk driven to do the seemingly impossible, build the greatest Gothic cathedral the world has ever known. And then everything readers expect from Follett is here. Intrigue, fast-paced action, and passionate romance. I don't know what to expect from Follett. And I know that these books are very long. They're like 900 and some odd pages. So I'm like, do I want to read that? I don't know. I think that if I saw this at a secondhand store in a condition and in the format I would like, I would actually pick it up, because you know, I always like to be connected with my family when I can, and so considering that my aunt loved this book, it's something that I think I would really actually want to read, if partly to have a conversation with her about it. This was originally published in 2010. This book I had never heard of, and this is why I love when you all recommend me books, because again, I've never heard of this book before, and it sounded really good. So this was by E.I.K.E.T.S.K.E. Eketsky. Her channel name is Reading is Like Breathing, which is a great channel name. And the book that she recommended was In a Dark Wood Wandering. And this is by Hella S. Hasse. So this is set during the 100 Years' War. So from 1337 to 1453. This is going to have names that we recognize. So it's going to be the Mad Charles VI. We have Joan of Arc, Henry V, and Charles of Orleans. So it's set in the Middle Ages and it's supposed to be done brilliantly. So it's one that sounds so good, and I'm so glad it was recommended to me. Y'all are getting me so excited about weird historical fiction. So the next book is actually The Mercies, and it's by Karen Millwood Hargrave, which the name rings a bell, but the book does not. And this was recommended by Zach Reeds. So it says, after a storm has killed off all the island's men, 2 women in a 1600s Norwegian coastal village struggle to survive against both the natural forces and the men who have been sent to rid the community of alleged witchcraft. So it's set in Norway in 1617, and it follows a 20-year-old person, Maren Bergesatter, who is, she's one of the women who lost both her brother and father in this tragic drowning of 40 fishermen. So, and then the story kind of takes off from there. Interesting. The description sounds fascinating, and it sounds like a setting and book that I would really enjoy. The next book is another book that I own, actually. It's a book I have on my shelves. And it was recommended to me by Mr. Fuzzy Flippers, but also my husband has recommended this book to me before, and he said it was really good. And it's called The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. And I think it's set during the Vietnam War, and it's about quite literally the things that the soldiers carried, but the meaning behind the things that they carried. And it's more about that than war, and it's more about storytelling and what is fiction versus a true account, and the way that fiction can work in our lives and in our hearts in sometimes a way that dry or boring accounts of nonfiction cannot. And yeah, I remember my husband recommending this to me when we were merely dating, and I own the book and I still haven't read it. So maybe this is the kick in the pants that I need to actually pick it up. This next book, Steve Donahue recommended at one point, and I have wanted to read it, and then it popped up again in the comments of this video. And it is called The Game of Kings by Dorothy Dunnett. This is also from the channel whose name I'm not going to embarrass myself by pronouncing again, but the channel name is Reading is Like Breathing. And this is, well, I think it's Steve Donahue said that Dorothy Dennett is in the ripe sort of stage in which she could probably find new readership. If like her books were being republished now, that readers nowadays might actually hook onto and get into her work, even though it's, several decades old. So this book, the first book in this series, was published in 1961, and I think it's a pretty long series. It's called the Lymond Chronicles, and according to Goodreads, there are 6 books in this series. And it says that the hero is Francis Crawford of Lymond, a scapegoat nobleman of elastic morals. Oh my gosh. I thought I was going to say something else. Elastic morals and dangerous talents, whose tongue is as sharp as his rapier. In 1547, Lymond is returning to his native Scotland, which is threatened by an English invasion. Accused of treason, Lymond leads a band of outlaws in a desperate race to redeem his reputation and his land. Well, that sounds just wonderful. Just wonderful. And it still climbs high on the list of books I want to read. The final book is another book that, again, has kind of been following me around for years. And this was recommended by D. Hari 1958. Anyways, it's The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, written in 2000 by Michael Chabon, or Chabon? I'm not sure. And this is about... Okay, so this is what it's about. It is following two Jewish cousins, the Czech artist Joe Cavalier and the Brooklyn-born writer Sammy Clay. It's going to be set before, during, and after World War II, which World War II is not my favorite time period because I've read a lot of World War II fiction, but I feel like this will be doing it way differently because it is about these two cousins becoming huge figures in the comics industry. And it's a thick novel. It's 639 pages, which has probably always kind of put me off to its size, but I heard it is fantastic. So, here's what I want y'all to do. Tell me if you've read any of these. I want to know what you've thought of them. That would be incredible. That's the first thing. The second thing, tell me if you have any other weird historical fiction recommendations. I'm on this kick this year to just, I don't know, gather them all up, keep them in my heart, keep them in my mind's eye. They're books that tend to make the top of my list, make my best of the year list. I just like historical fiction that is a little off the beaten path, that isn't gonna tell me, it's doing something different. So I want you to leave your recommendations down below. Tell me what it's doing different, if you can articulate it, or if it doesn't spoil anything. That would be awesome. I'm sure you all can articulate it. It's not your ability, but if you would like to articulate it, rather, that would be really awesome. And yeah, that's it for me. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here and spending this. Oh, wait, no. Oh my gosh. I did not tell you what I read. So what I read from this list was Burial Rites by Hannah Kent, and this was recommended by Starla, who is a wonderful commenter, and she's around all of my videos, which is amazing. This was originally published in 2013. It was Hannah Kent's debut novel. This was set in the early 1800s in Iceland, and it is about Agnes, who is convicted of murder, and she is being sent to this home because Iceland, as you will come to kind of discover in the first couple of chapters, is incredibly small, and everybody's kind of they have to do their part in a weird way. And so this family, this kind of small family, is doing their part in the local government system to hold Agnes in their house while she's waiting to be executed. And so it's like this holding prison, but she's not really treated like a prisoner because of the sort of small, tight-knit area that they're in. There's really nowhere for Agnes to go because of the area. There's nowhere to run away to. I mean, she'll likely get caught if she tries to run away. And so she's really just waiting for her death. And it's bleak, it's eerie. The setting is very bleak and eerie, since the harshness of the atmosphere being cold and windy and gray and icy and just miserable. It also has that feeling. The setting really plays a huge part in the mood of the book. I love this. I thought this was incredible. And so meanwhile, while Agnes is waiting for her death, she's getting to know the family, because she is spending quite a bit of time there. It's not like 2 days, it's several weeks, if not months. And while she's there, there is a young minister who is taking up her confession. And through that confession, you're really understanding Agnes's backstory, her life, the circumstances of her life that has led her to this day. And behind it all, you're wondering, is she guilty or is she not? It was doing something so cool. It was so interesting. And I thought it was, in a lot of ways, it asked very similar questions as Alias Grace. You know, is she guilty? To what extent is she guilty? If she is guilty, you know, was she, if she's guilty, you know, was it self-defense? And how was she being treated? And was this, you know, rage? You know, what happened? And in what ways was she actually involved to this murder that happened? And so what was so cool about this whole thing with Hannah Kent and this writing was that it gave me everything I wanted from Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. It gave me all of the pieces to it, but it didn't, Alias Grace leaves things very open and ambiguous, and I did not like that in that book. In a lot of ways, there were times where I felt like with Alias Grace, I was reading to have some sort of conclusion, because there were times where I felt like it was a bit sloggy. This book had no slogginess, and it gives you the answers. It gives you like the actual answers, and it's not, you know, in some ways it wasn't pleasing, you know, it didn't leave on this like high hopeful note, but it was satisfying and it was enjoyable. So it was kind of like everything I wanted Alias Grace to be and more. And it's also like 150 pages less than Alias Grace, which to me was a mark in its favor. It was so good. It was tightly written, and it was weird. And the weirdness, I think, not only has to do with the character of Agnes, who I found a lot more sympathetic than I initially thought, but also some of the townspeople, some of the members that she's staying with, they end up being more fascinating and sympathetic than I originally thought. And the setting was so perfect. It was so perfect. Like, you really just get this sense that this world, cinematically in my mind, the way that I played it out, it was very gray, very dark, very disturbing in a lot of ways, and it was so good. So, wow, I almost missed telling you that. So that is it for me. I'm going to say thank you. Now I'm going to really say thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with me. Starla, thank you for the recommendation. I love the book. It was so good. And that's it for me. So, you know, I appreciate you all. I love y'all, and I'll see you all in my next one. Bye!